finally gonna get to this thing. On this pallet under all these boxes is a crate short block, a late 80s 302 roller engine 5.0. So anyway, I got this from MABBCO because I'm tired of waiting on machine work taking forever, and this seemed like a pretty affordable deal. But what we're gonna go ahead and do today is pull it out, get it up on a motor stand, and see what we got. Well, here it is, kind of uncovered from all the speed parts resting on it. This is how I had it shipped to me. So anyway, like I said, we're gonna tear all through it and test their work. We see here we got our MABBCO sticker from Tyler, Texas. So let's get after it. All right, well, we got the motor all unpackaged and up on the engine stand here. We can get a good look at it. So this is our MABBCO short block 302 roller lifter engine, and just taking some initial looks. There's some good things, some bad things, and we'll get to those as we go through. But just our initial inspection here, the engine overall looks pretty clean. I don't see any nicks or dings or anything that seemed careless. It was packaged well so that it wasn't going to get rain or water in it and, you know, rust anything up. I asked them not to paint the engine, but I can see from the freeze plugs they probably just run all the blocks through and shoot them with a quick coat of paint. So you know, you get what you get there. But anyway, the engine comes assembled with a camshaft because they apparently spin test the engines, which I think is kind of sketchy because I don't know if they hook an oil pump on or not. I'm assuming it's a safe process or else they wouldn't do it. So, but anyway, I got this engine today where I got to pull it all apart. I'm going to check it all over, and then we're going to put our own camshaft in it. I couldn't order the engine without the cam because it would have actually cost more for me to have them take the cam and timing chain out. So kind of interesting. Like I said, they had to have that in the spin test. So looking closer at the engine here, you know, Ford, they number their rods from the factory, and just looking here, it looks like they've taken a grinder and just ground off the old stamping, and they've re-stamped them. And I don't know if this was originally a set and they just stamped it to make it more clear, or if they just had a big bin of connecting rods from, I'm sure they get a lot of cores, and then they just had a bunch of connecting rods, but they look like they're all the same part numbers, so they're from the same era, so that's at least good. So or at least straightforward in that regard. But anyway, we'll look into everything in finer detail when we get to tearing it down and inspecting, but we'll flip this thing over and have a look at the other side. All right, here we are taking a closer look, and again, the engine block itself looks real nice and clean, not like it was ram jammed together. The bores look pretty clean thus far. They don't look like they have any damage. Good cross hatching, and they got a good chamfer up here, so looks like good work to that degree. The first thing I see that stands out that I don't really care for, and what I would never do myself or have done, is if you see right here, these are 60 over pistons. So this is a 60 over engine, and you know, that's getting pretty thin for me. So I don't know if they sonic checked it or not. So when we get this thing tore down, we might take it in and have it tested. We might not, I'm not sure, but that's definitely a demerit. So, you know, it's never really good practice on a Ford to go much over 40. And if you didn't sonic test it or whatever to check the wall thickness, which, you know, just putting my hand in here, it's hard to feel those little variances, but I mean, there is not a lot of material here to be playing around with. So, you know, and this engine's gonna see the autocross track quite a bit. So we'll have to do some thinking on that. But anyway, without further ado, let's get ripping into this thing and check things over and just see how things were done. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and check the main cap torque to see if these were even torqued correctly. So what we have here is our torque wrench. We have it set to 70 foot-pounds, and we're just going to go around and see if any of them were loose. And then after this, we'll set our torque wrench up to 80 foot-pounds and get a crank on them and make sure that they weren't torqued up to 80 foot-pounds. So anyway, we'll get after it. Okay, so we're at least all at 70 foot-pounds, so we got them all torqued down. We're going to go ahead and set our torque wrench to 80 foot-pounds and check this all again to make sure they haven't been over-torqued. Alright, here we are at 80 foot-pounds, and we should see the bolts try and move. Ooh, that one's at 80. That one's at 80. That one's at 80. Okay, these are definitely all over-torqued, so we're going to go ahead and bump this up to 90, and I really hope that they're not torqued past this point. So start getting up above this, you'll start ruining your threads and distorting your main caps. So anyway, I guess here we go, 90 foot-pounds. And now we need to brace the engine. Okay, so at 90 foot-pounds, good grief, these are clicking off at 90 foot-pounds. That one has a little movement in it. That one has a little movement. That one's at 90 foot-pounds. That one's at 90 foot-pounds. That one's at 90. Oop. That one's at 90. And that one's at 90. Good grief. At this point, we're going to stop. I don't want to put any more torsion on these bolts and stress and strain than I have to, but this is, these main caps are way over torqued. So we're going to, when we disassemble this, we're going to get these right. But anyway, we'll go ahead and rotate this engine over, and we'll check all of our rod caps to see what they're torqued to. But that's incredible. Those are a good 20 foot-pounds over torqued on this little small block Ford engine. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and check our connecting rod bolts and see what the torque is on those. Now they're supposed to be 25 foot-pounds, so like we did with our main caps, we're set to 25 foot-pounds. So we're going to make sure they're all tight enough first, and then, you know, we'll go to 35 and see if they've been over torqued as well. So anyway, without further ado, I guess we'll get after it. All right. All right, so at least everything's tight enough. So now we'll go ahead and bump our torque wrench up to 35. And you know, why don't we just go and give them the benefit of the doubt? We'll just bump it all the way up to 40 here. So now we should not see these click off. They should try and turn. So again, here we go. All right, good. That one turned. That one turned. Good. 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 And we're good. All right, so at least these connecting rod studs here are within 10 foot-pounds. So, and they're all up to 25, so they're tight enough, and if the engine would have been ran, though the rods at least wouldn't have flown apart. So, as we saw, the main cap bolts are quite a bit over torqued, but the connecting rod's good, so at least I think if the stress didn't snap any of our bolts, which I'm sure they would have held together, I think we would have been all right. But definitely some discrepancies in torque there, and some things could have been done a little better. But all in all, at that point, the engine still would have ran. So anyway, we'll get deeper into this thing. We'll blow all this apart and look at things a little closer. Quick tip here, even though your torque wrench can be flipped around where it'll loosen things, that is not what it's designed to do, and you'll mess up your torque wrench. So you always want to make sure you use a regular socket wrench to go ahead and disassemble things. Again, quick tip, never use your torque wrench to take anything apart. I'm pulling these pistons out of here, and we're working through that right now. We'll check things like piston weight, make sure the rings were put on right and the bearings were trued up and everything. So we'll be getting to that in a bit here, but I forgot to mention before I started pulling this thing apart, another good thing you always want to check for is the quench. So how far does the piston sit in the hole? An engine's a lot more likely to detonate if it sits down in the hole a little bit where you know, you have space between the top of the piston and the top of the deck. Now here we see where they have taken the time to deck down the top of the block, which most rebuilders do. Go ahead and face the block standard amount, and they told me they were going to do this, but what I'm impressed by here is that there is 0 piston to deck clearance there, and that's usually have to pay good money to have that done if you're having your engine rebuilt. So if anything, the pistons even protrude ever so slightly on this cylinder here. So anyway, that's pretty good. That's encouraging, and that's some good stuff that we do like to see in an engine rebuild. Alright, so I got the pistons out of our engine here and come out pretty well. So taking a look here, all the part numbers on the connecting rods are exactly the same, so that's good. They're from the same era. And even though they were rescribed, they were all numbered correctly, and these Ford connecting rods have a beveled end that have to go up against the side of the crank, and that was all, they were all located in those positions properly. The main caps were put on in line with the connecting rod itself, so no grievances there. The piston skirts look real good where they didn't scratch those up. Installing, and the bores over there are in good shape, so that's good. The piston rings, they're all facing the proper direction where the indicator marks are facing up like they're supposed to be, and impressive enough, they actually took the time to get the ring spacing correct on all these pistons. So they took the time to face it so you know, the split wasn't in the same place with the rings, so they did good work there. So moving through, we're going to get a weight on all these pistons, see if they were, check our static balancing, just make sure our rotating assembly is somewhat uniform, but aesthetically and mechanically the pistons look to be in pretty good shape, and there's pretty good work done there. Alright, so taking a look at the connecting rod assemblies here to make sure that the work was done to get the static balancing correct. Obviously I didn't send my flywheel and harmonic balancer, so all we have is a static balance. So I'm just taking a look here. You know, all of these piston and connecting rod assemblies should be pretty much the same weight, and I am actually impressed to see that they all are. So all of them come in at 3 pounds and 1.6 ounces. So like I said, that's pretty impressive. I didn't expect to see that, especially since there's you know, no work on the bottom of these pistons. I really wouldn't have, or the connecting rods where they were balanced, I really wouldn't have expected that. But they all come in about the same. But taking a closer look here, it's like they did go around and remove material from some of them. So anyway, long story short here, the proper work was done with the piston connecting rod assemblies. They're all balanced to the same weight, so that means we're going to have a nice and smooth running rotating assembly, at least as far as static balancing goes. So so far with that, we're looking pretty good. Alright, so I got the short block completely disassembled now, so come apart pretty good, and the MABBCO boys are really doing pretty good here. I don't have too many terrible complaints yet, anything that I have a problem with. I mean, the engine would have still ran just fine and ran for miles. I checked on my rings to make sure that I did have Molly rings, so that's good. I paid for that, so, and that could have been easily hidden because unless someone pulls a piston out, they couldn't see it. So I've looked into that, and we have good verification there. A few issues with the crank. It does look like it has good machine work on it, but if you can kind of see, it doesn't look like it's necessarily been polished after it's been ground, and they did not chamfer these holes out again, so it kind of gives them a knife edge to a degree. And usually, at least my local machine shop, they'll have that all polished up, and they will also, like I said, put a chamfer on these oiling holes. And why I like these to be polished up, we'll take a look here, is you know, MABBCO does a spin test, so it has been spun a little bit, and if we can see that bearing score right there, it's directly in line with the machining marks on the crank from it being ground and not being polished. But you know, the engine would run like that just fine. So again, I can't really have too many complaints there. Got a little bit of a worn crank with the rear main seal, but again, you know, that's what you get with something that's been ran and rebuilt. And a few other things, everything come apart good. It looks like all the bearings were properly seated. It had the right in play on the crank, so I don't know if they checked that or not, but it was correct. The rear main seal here, it's a one-piece rear main seal. It was installed properly in the right direction. I can't have too many complaints, but if you've seen from my build videos and how-to stuff, I like to put a coat of gasket seal around the outside because these will weep oil around the outside otherwise. So when we reassemble, we'll clean that up properly. But all in all, looking pretty good to this point. Another thing here is these cam bearings. They have an oiling journal here that needs to be installed in line with the oiling hole, and I don't know if you can see it there, but I can see the full daylight through all of them. So they've all been installed and located properly, so that's good. When the engine would run, it would have good oil pressure to the cam bearings as well. So like I said, we're looking pretty good here. We're going to do some closer checking, get the micrometer on the crank, pull some piston rings off, and put them down in the bores, make sure that the ring gap's right with everything, but really so far so good. So I broke out the micrometer here and checked over the crank, and it looks pretty good. All the rod journals are all the same, and all the main journals are all the same. They're all ground 10 under, which I imagined because we could see the machining marks here. And like I said before, it hadn't been polished, so it's pretty blatant it had been ground under. I'm pleased to see it hasn't been taken 20 under, so that's pretty good. I went through and pulled all the piston rings off of the pistons and pushed them down in the bores, and they all have acceptable ring gaps, so it's 10 thousandths to 20 thousandths ring gap, and all of these are somewhere between 15 to 18, so they're on the upper end, but that's fine with me because that's more on the safe side for higher RPM and higher heat stuff. So that pretty much concludes this tear down inspection. So I'm confident that when I put this engine together and all the time into it, it's going to be just fine when it runs. So the MABBCO boys did an alright job apparently. So anyway, we'll get this thing back together. If you're curious on how to go through and assemble a small block Ford, I have several build series playlists that you can go and watch through. It's step by step how to, has all the information. You see me do everything on camera, so it's pretty good stuff. And when I got started, I used this How to Rebuild a Small Block Ford book years and years ago. It's a tremendous book, and it'll teach you everything you need to know to rebuild the small block Ford. So anyway, that's pretty much that. Time to get our comp cams bump stick on in there and reassemble this thing and go. So overall, my experience with MABBCO here has been pretty good. I'm fairly impressed. They didn't cut any corners. They could have hid the piston rings from me, and they put in what they were supposed to. So all in all, it looks like they did an alright job. You know, some things I don't like. It's bored 60 over, and I was a little apprehensive of the engine when I saw that and the over torque on the main caps, but outside of this, everything was good. Torqued properly to a relative degree. There's not any nicks and dings in anything. All the oiling passages are lined up well, so pretty pleased. So time to put this thing back together and get the old Galaxy back on the road again.